How much money did you save?
I think it was around about £200 we saved in the end. And usually you can tell from the reviews, which ones are a bit dodgy, which ones are not. And what I mean by dodgy is, people can bot responses, right? We usually get an extra little bonus.
Hey, David, thank you for coming online, David.
Took me a while.
So the thing on your head, awesome.
I've worked in the air industry before, and I like to give the signal for planes to leave the airport.
So all you're missing is those the
Exactly.
What do you call them? The lightsaber
Batons,
stuff.
maybe. Yeah, lightsabers. We'll go with that one.
If the planes are lost, look for David. Okay.
Over that way. Not gonna happen, I'm afraid.
Well, David, the reason why we want to do this is you've got a young family. And you're planning to go somewhere with the family, obviously, and we look after quite a few Airbnbs. I thought it would be a good idea to share some thoughts in terms of how you went about deciding on an Airbnb. Doesn't necessarily have to be an Airbnb, is it? I mean, because there's too many portals out there right now. I'll share some tips with the viewers at some point. But welcome to the channel. Should I be talking to the cans separately because they seem to have their own kind of entity?
The hands, these ones. Why not?
Welcome.
It's a great skill to have when you're doing presentations, right? Maybe not for webcamming.
Do the lightsaber stuff. Do you think there'll be a good traffic signal guy?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same sort of stuff, really. It's just signaling.
But the size of the transportation is different, right?
Very true.
You've got an A380 versus, I don't know, a Toyota Prius.
A little car, yeah. Maybe it's a down step for someone who works in that industry. I'm not sure. I haven't worked there really. I don't know. That's the truth.
It'll be a good conversation, right? Stop.
Yeah. If we ever do a meeting for next time, we'll bring the batons along, and that can be our kind of keys and cues. What are we going to do? Stop. Your turn. Yeah. It's funny you say about Airbnbs because it's always in the forefront of your mind whenever you go on holiday now. And if I be honest with you, the first thing I look for is Airbnb. So I guess it's got such an attraction that you can go, hey, I don't have to be in a room next door to someone. Or even if you wanted to, it has the house shares, you got the flexibility. If you go for things like hotels, these things are very much tailored to, hey, you've got one building, you're in a complex, then you go out and do things.
So you would obviously look at probably resorts as well, right?
I would be keen on if they did anything like that, is something like a resort, something a bit smaller, something a bit more tailored. Having an Airbnb also gives a level of personalization for, say, not just you as someone to come and to stay there, but more so for the person to put their own flair on a place. So what I've found in the past is it's like the small little touches. You come into your room, they've left a nice little hamper, maybe a welcome note. You need anything, I'm right there. It's almost like I can help you at any time. And if you think of very much like you booking through a hotel agency, you always find that it's very much just like, you know what you're getting with the hotel. It's you go there for one thing. There's not that level of personalization unless you go to the most expensive ones, I guess you could say. Location, personalization, freedom.
Okay. So where are you going next?
I've got 2 trips planned. One will not have either because it's a family holiday, so I won't go into depth with that one. But Menorca, I'm going next week, funnily enough, so in Spain. And we did look through quite a few Airbnbs because we were thinking about maybe we could get really close to the seaside, or maybe we could just go somewhere which is a bit more secluded than one of the big resorts, because in Spain the big resorts always have loads of people in them. It's like a haven for UK people. There's some statistics around it, but there's more UK people that go to Spain than any other place by quite a bit. But what I actually ended up with going with booking.com, I'll tell you the reason why. Having my son who's 3.
No, hold on. Before we talk about booking.com, because we started the conversation with Airbnb, you're planning this trip for a family to Menorca. Is it worth just having a quick kind of glance in terms of what you looked for?
Yeah, sure.
Walk us through the thought process you had.
I don't have any saved history, but I'll show you exactly what I did. Typically, when I go through to Airbnb, there's a few filters that I look for, because a lot of the time you end up getting things that just don't seem tailored to your original search. Like if you were just to search anything you want on here, for instance, I think the first thing is set out your parameters. For me, we usually just do 2 adults here, 1 child, the easy things. What dates are you going? I mean, for us, we even do flexible dates as well, because sometimes they bring up a few gems which you don't get with like specific dates, which is really odd. So every now and again, we'll use the flexible dates. Honestly, if you do the flexible dates, you
No,
actually
no, that's
get
a great tip. Yeah.
more. But it's weird. You get more properties, and sometimes you get cheaper properties than what you would get just by selecting, specific parameters. But I mean, for this case, we were looking very much for May. We wanted to go for a week. We just thought, get out of the country. And as you see, the exact dates, we didn't actually play around with any of this time around. But every now and again, if I'm to look for certain things, sometimes I don't really care if it's like a Wednesday that I go on, because again, you get some
Yeah.
cheaper rates. And again, destinations, like where are you going? If I, for instance, wanted to go to Spain, I wouldn't even just put Spain. I would put an area around Spain and then let it do the rest, more like a region. So, like in the UK, we've got what you call them counties. I would stick a county and just kind of pick the best one in that area. But as I say, in this case, we actually went quite specific, went with Menorca. Um, and as I say, I know, I appreciate we didn't actually go ahead with this in the end, but these are very things that we were looking for, and it was quite nice. That they're not exactly expensive either. If I be honest with you, you got the swimming pool, tick. It's quite a nice little villa inside when you go through each ones. Another thing, and this isn't for my search, this is actually for my wife's search more than anything else, is she always goes for the superhost. It's just something that's in her mind that she always puts in there.
It does make sense.
Knowing that you have someone there who's, tailored for your stay is a great thing about Airbnb. That's what I was saying before about that personalization, the special touches. And so we actually, we were looking through a lot of these different ones to go, right, what do we actually want from a place? Which is kind of our next stop. And we always look through photos. And I know it's bad to just judge through photos at first step, but that's kind of our first criteria to go, does it look like what we want? We could be looking for, okay, we need a sizable room. There's got to be somewhere for our, kid to stay. Does it
Hmm.
have all the amenities we're looking for? Because if we go for an Airbnb, a lot of time you're going to have to pay for these sort of things. So does it have a cooker? Is it a gas hob? I know that sounds weird, but it's just things that we like over other things. I suppose you kind of set your preferences in your own mind what you want to do. So yeah, we'll end up looking here, and we don't usually go for the cheapest straight away. More than anything, we'll look at like mid-range. So for here, it would be more like the 86.95. Not all the way up to the 114. We'll only do that at a later date if we think, yeah, you know what, we're just not getting good enough value for what we're looking for here. We'll increase our budget. But then again, we're really opposed to going for the really, really cheapest ones at the same time. And once we've kind of got like 3 or 4, or maybe even 5, kind of shortlisted, we usually
Yeah.
stick it in a list. And between us, we'll just go through each of the reviews. And usually you can tell from the reviews, which ones are a bit dodgy, which ones are not. And what I mean by dodgy is, people can bot responses, right? Different things in here which they become obvious. They're like really short sentence, like stay was good, amazing. And having these type of things is just not useful for a review. So we always look for large reviews. We don't mess around with like, oh, it's one liner, great. What we like to see is like, how close to amenities was it? How close to the sea was it? These sorts of things. Like, you always get that description on Airbnb going, yes, it's this close, but the reality is not always the truth. So it's good to get that feedback from different people. So again, reviews is a big thing for us. And if we see really good reviews, usually we'll be set on a place because we like the look of it.
Hmm.
And then we just will jump straight in, reserve it. And I think the great thing about Airbnb is, unlike maybe some hotels or other services, is that you can pretty much cancel it very close to the date that you're supposed to be staying.
Okay, so your selection criteria, I just want to dial this in, right? Because yours is a young family. Your requirement is very, very specific to certain things, right? So
Absolutely, yeah.
super host, when you're looking at Airbnb, you want the comfort where you know that for a fact that you'll have peace of mind, especially with the young kid. And you were looking at pools because probably you want some water activities, right?
Yeah, kid likes to swim, right?
It's more of a sensible choice than anything else.
Imagine jumping in a swimming pool
FYI,
in
you don't
the
want to get into the
UK.
water in winter in London or anywhere in UK probably. Then walk me through what you did.
Now we've got a kid, certain priorities have changed as well. When you do go for something like this, you know what you're getting into. You have to buy food, you know you're going to have to cook, you know you've got all of these different things that you're going to have to do within the place. It's very much like a home away from a home. As I mentioned before, because we are going away to kind of get that break, not so much having to do anything. So we look through all of these. And I think in an ideal world, maybe when my son's older, or if we didn't have my son, this would be something that we would have then just gone reserve. Got it, pinned it in, picked the one we like, and we knew we're good to go. But there's something that was hanging over us from one other stay that we did in Morocco. We actually did an all inclusive. And I tell you what, this was the deciding factor, which is the only truth behind it. It's the only deciding factor that stopped us from booking through Airbnb this time around. Although it is slightly more expensive, what we were paying for was convenience, so that we didn't have to make the breakfast, we didn't have to make the lunch, we didn't have to make the dinner, because all of these things are things that we usually have to do.
Knowing that you have food on your
Yeah.
holiday when you want food is what I would pay a lot more.
That's what we're saying. Wouldn't it be beautiful if there was a service within Airbnb where you go, right, you just get the place.
Some of them do. We had a chef staying in house. Obviously, it was,
Wow.
we went out for golf, but it was a live-in chef, and the property is big enough to host. I think there was 8 of us or 10 of us. A big property. They kind of prepared the food and they kept the food in the fridge as well. I mean, he was very nice. It was very accommodating, but I think it's not available everywhere. So from Airbnb, you've done the research. You know what you're after. You have the pool access. You can see nearby beaches, the accessibility to nearby facilities. What did you decide on?
With the Airbnb, although we found quite a few that we liked, it just didn't have that convenience part that we were looking for. So we actually went for booking.com. We found the hotel we wanted to go through booking.com, but actually ended up booking direct with the hotel, which worked out cheaper, which is really odd.
How much money did you save?
I think it was around about £200 we saved in the end.
That can be your
Or is it
day's
days
worth
worth
of
food?
expenditure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
If I've ever done searching in the past, it's always been you go through like your booking.coms or whatever, and actually it's cheaper through there. But just worked out the other way this time around. And it was quite a nice one. Again, fit all the criteria we were kind of looking for.
Should we go through booking.com just to kind of pinpoint in terms of how you went through those filters?
So really, really simple again. Start off.
Okay.
We first start off with just the easies. So what dates are you going? Let's just say 3. So really nice and simple. And then we usually kind of start breaking out further and further the more we get into it. So we usually just have a quick look to go, okay, what do we have to start off with? The first thing we'll probably do is go, how much are we actually looking per night? Yeah, so usually that just gives you it breaks it down to more like your price range that you're looking for. If you are with booking.com's kind of reward service, you get a thing called Genius. Depending on how much you've used it, you get these different, I would say, bonuses. Essentially, the Genius one then kind of separates out extra special deals that you get, and actually they're usually very good, and they usually kind of give you cheaper price for something that's usually a lot more expensive. But typically what we look for, again, based on reviews, we always go for anything over around about 8. If it goes below 8, again, it's straight off a put off for us. We just leave it. We usually just stick down kind of the rating 8 or 9. Oops, sorry, apologies. So then at least we've kind of got it nailed down. We know exactly what we're looking for in terms of good reviews and people who have rated this, because these aren't booking.com's reviews. There are people who have gone on there. We'll look through the reviews just to make sure that they're not spam and somebody's just gone in with a ton of people just to make their properties look desirable. And again, I actually can't find the one that I'm looking for, so the only thing I can think is that,
so say for example, let's pick up Nuramar Resort and Villas for argument's sake, right? So
yeah, so let's just say, for instance, Nuremberg. So again, going into this, first thing we look for is what sort of photos are there, what's the layout of it. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes you can get a gist of, if you buy a certain property that's, say, beach facing, but actually that's not where the sun comes up in the morning. For us, we very much like the sun in the morning, and if we can get it all day round, then great, but we know that's not always the case. If we go into all of the different reviews. It's good to know how close things are and how people felt about the travel to get from somewhere. But we would look at this to go, right, how close is it to the nearest restaurant strip? And again, just the general look and feel. Does it look clean? Is the layout nice? Is there too much intrusion from the opposite side, the adjacent buildings? These sorts of things. How spread out is it? How clean does it look?
You know
So
what we
it's
used
quite
to look for? Just one of those things. I'm just curious. We used to look for child playing areas. For us, one of the preferences were that we want, because they were pretty young, and we wanted to make sure that the soft toys and everything else was there just in case.
good. It's a good point. And again, once we kind of got all this other things that we look for, and I know it's this just the fact it's this day and age is things like free Wi-Fi. I know it sounds stupid, but sometimes it's nice just to have free Wi-Fi. The next thing is that we look for is once we've kind of found the place, what we tend to look for is rooms as well. And as you see there, I'm not signed in, but we usually get an extra little bonus, and it might not always be a discount. I know it says discount there, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's like an extra perk. Actually, like that as an example.
Free
It might
upgrade.
just be a free stay for your kid as an example. So we'll go through each of these and we'll try and find the room that suits us best.
Yeah.
And what we usually do is we'll click into each of these, and if we like the look of it, like it's a morning picture, we can see the sun coming in. It's a pretty easy, you know, observation you can make to go, yes, okay, that's the one I'm kind of looking for. I'm a bit more simplistic when I look for it. I don't like to make it too
Mm.
narrow. If I look for too narrow, I feel like I lose out on certain things. I've done
Mm.
it before in the past, and someone's gone, "Oh, did you book down there?" And we were like, "No, I didn't even know it was a possibility."
Mm.
Like, oh, well, we just searched this, and it's one of those things you find out later and kind of regret and go, "Oh,
Mm.
okay, maybe next time." Yeah, I mean, we very rarely go to the actual hotel or the villa or the resort after we've seen it on booking.com.
But you
It's
do
quite
lose
rare.
out on flexibility in terms of some of these hotels.
You've really just got to go, what's your preference at this time in your life? Because for me, it will always be Airbnb. The amount of amazing properties we've managed to stay in just by finding those sweet little hidden away places. Like when
Mm.
we went to Vancouver Island, my God, that place was amazing. They left bikes, they left food in there. It was just the perfect setup, and it was very easy for us to, get around and but also be secluded at the same time. Whereas in a hotel, I never feel like that. I'm not saying it's claustrophobic, but it's very much like you're in a room and it's in a complex, and that's the complex. Whereas you feel like you're just a home away from a home in an
Yeah.
Airbnb place. So if you want my preference, I will probably pick Airbnb most times when
Mm.
my son's a bit older again.
Okay. Last question. Top 10 things you'd recommend. So we'll just pick this out in random, and we'll just pick out
Sure.
Brahma Resort as well, right? So I don't want to get divulge too much of our personal information for the viewers that we have. How can you make Nurama Resort and Villas? How can you make this better? Say, for example, and this is a random question because we picked out a random resort, young family. What are they missing to attract families?
Actually, it goes back to what you said in one of your comments. What's the first thing you can't see in any of these photos? I don't see a playful area where it would be a nice area. Maybe apart from this pool, there is no other area in this whole complex that goes, hey, this is kid friendly.
Yeah.
All it shows me is that this is a pool. You'll be sitting by the seaside of that pool, and here's your breakfast area. Here's the rooms inside. Don't know. Pictures make the bed look a bit smaller than what they actually probably are.
Mm.
So maybe a bit more of an expansive picture
I
set
don't know
when
if
it
they
comes
if
to.
they can do away with a couple more paintings on the wall, just to make
It's
it
very bland, isn't it?
just to make it a bit more colorful.
They've really focused on the outside and the pool, haven't they? That's that's
Mm.
that's that's what they're trying to draw.
Yeah.
And look, a very artistic photo, great. That doesn't really do anything for the hotel, in my opinion, but great. The entrances, they're pretty good. When you think about like a pushchair or something like this, they're flat. Actually, I say they're flat, but this one's a bit raised. But I'm sure you'd get in from a different
Parking used to
entrance.
be
Yeah,
a big criteria for us when we
parking,
did, yeah, when we were
hiring a
doing
car.
city hopping, because you want to go around a bit, right? Any reason why you haven't spoken about Expedia or HomeAway or
I've used them in the past.
yeah,
Again, it's going to be super preference after using booking.com for so long. And I'm not trying to sell booking.com at all, okay? But I forgot to say that the Genius has levels. So the more have booked with them in the past, the higher your level will be, the more discount you get. and there is some sort of nice way to keep you enticed to keep using it. I have used Expedia in the past. It may have improved, but I just didn't like it. It was a bit too vast. I think in the past, Expedia didn't just do hotels and didn't just do that. And I think they still don't. I think they're so varied, they're not tailored
I used to
enough.
buy all my plane tickets through Expedia at some point.
Exactly, exactly. And they used to have the I think the good thing what booking.com have done over maybe the other ones is they've separated out, and their filters are good for separating it out as well. It's not very much like that whole, hey, here's a load of information, I'm just going to throw it at you, you work out what you want from each bit. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm just looking for a stay, so I'm just going to
yeah,
search stays,
yeah.
or I'm just going to look for flights. Great. I wouldn't go here for flights because it's not, in my opinion, renowned. Personally, I think the only other thing that I would really look for is if they have a desirable location. I feel like looking through these photos, it doesn't show that. If you want to really, really sell the fact that your
Like a picture of
villa
a
is
beach.
great, and like the map here just shows a small little snippet. However, I bet if you clicked into the map and it showed you, a bit more detail of what it looks like, you'd
Mm,
almost go, damn, you're literally on the beach. How
mm,
could you not want to do that? It's very much things like this about selling their property. You're
mm,
just a 5-minute walk to the beach. Then again, you might go, oh, but this one's closer and it's almost the same. Things like this, but get my point.
mm.
Sell what your hotel really does. I feel like those pictures is just your standard everyday hotel pictures. Like everywhere's going to be similar-ish. What separates Nuremberg from anywhere else? I can't really see anything here.
Brilliant. Love the chat. And will the cans get bigger next time, or are you going to rely on something
Well,
smaller?
because we're bringing out the battens next time, probably bigger. I'll have the radio control coming in as well. No, probably use smaller headphones.
All right, dude. Thank you so much for coming. Learned a few things, actually, to be honest. We'll touch base next time.
Cool. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
Enjoy the holiday. Have a great time with the
Yes.
family.
Cannot wait.